A wealthy and ambitious man marries a woman solely for her father's inheritance. But here's something from the father he could never have imagined. Please consider subscribing to the channel to support our projects. Michael Turner was a man driven by an insatiable hunger for wealth and power. From a young age, he had a knack for business, turning every venture he touched into a lucrative enterprise. His sharp mind and ruthless strategies made him a formidable figure in the corporate world. Despite his already substantial fortune, Michael always wanted more. His latest obsession was a name that echoed power and prestige: Charles Dawson. Charles Dawson was a legend in the business world, a magnate whose empire spanned continents. His wealth was the stuff of legends, and his reputation was untarnished, marked by shrewd business acumen and a legacy of philanthropy. For Michael, marrying into the Dawson family was not just a strategic move. It was the ultimate conquest. Michael's introduction to Charles came through a mutual acquaintance at an exclusive charity gala. He had heard of Charles's daughter, Emma, a woman known for her beauty and kind heart, but until that night, he had never met her. As he observed her from across the room, a plan began to form in his mind. Marrying Emma would not only grant him access to the Dawson fortune, but also position him in a place of unrivaled influence and power. With every passing moment, Michael's resolve hardened. He would charm Emma, win her over, and secure the inheritance that Charles Dawson would inevitably leave behind. Little did he know, his carefully laid plans would soon be tested in ways he never could have anticipated. The grand ballroom was a testament to opulence, with gilded mirrors reflecting the soft glow of chandeliers and the hushed murmur of well-dressed guests mingling under the high ceilings. Michael, dressed in a charcoal suit that exuded sophistication, navigated the sea of affluent attendees with practiced ease. His eyes were sharp, constantly searching for his target, Emma Dawson. Emma stood out effortlessly amidst the crowd. Her emerald green gown, simple yet elegant, highlighted her natural beauty. Her dark hair was styled in loose waves that framed her face, and her warm smile seemed to light up the room. She moved with a grace that was both regal and approachable, stopping to converse with various guests, her laughter a melodic sound that reached Michael's ears even from a distance. Michael observed her for a few moments, noting how she interacted with everyone around her. She was genuine, her kindness evident in the way she listened intently and responded thoughtfully. It was clear that Emma was well-loved and respected, not just for her family's wealth, but for her own merits. Steeling himself, Michael made his move. He approached Emma just as she was finishing a conversation with an elderly patron. "Good evening, Miss Dawson," he began, his voice smooth and confident. "I'm Michael Turner. I've heard so much about the wonderful work you're doing with the foundation." Emma turned her gaze to him, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Mr. Turner, it's a pleasure to meet you," she replied, offering her hand. "Please call me Emma." Michael took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "Only if you call me Michael," he said with a charming smile. "I must say, this event is quite impressive. Your family's dedication to philanthropy is truly inspiring." Emma's smile widened. "Thank you, Michael. We believe it's important to give back to the community. My father has always taught me that with great wealth comes great responsibility." Michael nodded, his expression sincere. Wise words. It's refreshing to meet someone who not only understands that but also acts on it. I've been involved in a few charitable projects myself, though I must admit, nothing on the scale of what you do. As the evening unfolded, Michael skillfully steered their conversation to topics that allowed him to showcase his intelligence and wit. He made her laugh with anecdotes from his business ventures, impressing her with tales of his success. At the same time, he listened attentively when she spoke about her passions and projects, his eyes never leaving hers. Emma found herself drawn to Michael's charisma and the depth of his knowledge. He wasn't just another wealthy guest. He seemed genuinely interested in the causes she cared about. They moved through the event together, sharing whispered conversations and quiet laughter. When they danced, Michael guided her effortlessly across the floor, their movements in perfect harmony. Throughout the night, Michael made sure to plant the seeds of their future interactions. He expressed interest in attending more of her events and offered his support for her initiatives. Emma, flattered by his attention and impressed by his apparent dedication, eagerly accepted his proposals. By the end of the evening, Michael had succeeded in capturing Emma's interest. As they parted ways, he gently kissed her hand, promising to see her again soon. Emma watched him leave, her heart fluttering with a sense of excitement and curiosity. For Michael, this was just the beginning. His plan was set in motion, and he knew that with patience and persistence, he could secure not only Emma's affection but also the fortune that came with it. Little did he realize that this path he had chosen would soon lead him to unexpected revelations and profound changes. Michael's courtship of Emma was nothing short of masterful. From their first meeting at the charity gala, he meticulously planned every encounter, ensuring that each moment they spent together was memorable. He sent her flowers with handwritten notes, each one more thoughtful than the last. They dined at the finest restaurants, attended exclusive events, and took long, moonlit walks where Michael shared stories of his life, carefully curated to present him as both successful and deeply caring. Emma, charmed by his attentiveness and impressed by his apparent depth, found herself falling for Michael more each day. He seemed to be everything she had ever wanted in a partner: intelligent, compassionate, and dedicated to the same causes she held dear. Michael's ability to anticipate her needs and desires made her feel seen and valued in a way she had never experienced before. Their relationship quickly became the talk of the town. The media buzzed with excitement over the union of two powerful families, and society columns speculated about their future together. Michael basked in the attention, knowing that each public appearance with Emma brought him one step closer to his ultimate goal. As the months passed, Michael's efforts to win over Emma intensified. He proposed on a private yacht, the sun setting behind them, casting a golden glow over the ocean. Emma, overwhelmed with joy and love, said yes without hesitation. Michael slipped a dazzling diamond ring onto her finger, sealing their engagement with a passionate kiss. The wedding planning commenced immediately, with no expense spared. Emma's vision of a dream wedding was brought to life with meticulous detail. The ceremony took place in a historic cathedral adorned with thousands of white roses, the scent filling the air. Michael stood at the altar, resplendent in a custom-made tuxedo, his eyes fixed on Emma as she walked down the aisle in a gown that seemed to shimmer with every step. The ceremony was a blend of tradition and personal touches, each moment crafted to reflect their love story. Vows were exchanged, rings slipped onto fingers, and as they were pronounced husband and wife, a collective sigh of happiness echoed through the pews. The reception that followed was a grand affair, with gourmet food, flowing champagne, and music that kept the guests dancing late into the night. Throughout the festivities, Michael's mind occasionally drifted to the fortune that now seemed within his grasp. He played the part of the devoted husband flawlessly, his smiles genuine, his affection for Emma never wavering in public. As they danced under the twinkling lights of the grand ballroom, he held her close, whispering sweet nothings in her ear, fully aware of the audience watching their every move. Emma, blissfully unaware of Michael's ulterior motives, was the picture of happiness. She felt secure in his arms, believing that their future together was as bright as the chandelier overhead. The love she saw in Michael's eyes seemed to mirror her own, and she looked forward to the life they would build together, a life filled with love, family, and shared dreams. For Michael, The wedding was a triumphant culmination of months of effort. As he and Emma left for their honeymoon, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The first part of his plan had succeeded beyond his expectations, and now he could almost taste the vast wealth that awaited him. However, deep inside, an unfamiliar feeling began to stir, one that he would soon be forced to confront. Charles Dawson was a man of keen intellect and sharp instincts, qualities that had served him well in building his empire. Though he had welcomed Michael into the family with outward warmth, he had never fully let his guard down. The speed with which Michael had wooed and married Emma raised an unspoken alarm in Charles's mind, one he could not ignore. In the weeks following the wedding, Charles began to observe Michael more closely. He watched their interactions at family dinners, noting the subtleties in Michael's behavior. While Michael played the role of a devoted husband to perfection, Charles saw moments where his charm seemed too polished, his affection too calculated. He paid attention to the way Michael's eyes would occasionally flicker with a hardness that contradicted his loving words. Charles's suspicions were further fueled by conversations with Emma. She would recount Michael's grand gestures and elaborate plans, which, while romantic, seemed almost scripted. Emma's happiness was genuine, but Charles could sense a dissonance, a part of Michael that remained hidden, even from his daughter. To delve deeper, Charles discreetly reached out to his network. He had friends and associates who could uncover truths that were not easily visible. Information started to trickle in. Michael's past business dealings, his relentless drive for success, and whispers of his ambition that bordered on ruthless. None of it was overtly damning, but it painted a picture of a man whose primary loyalty was to his own advancement. Charles didn't confront Michael directly. Instead, he invited him to more intimate settings, seeking to peel back the layers of charm. During these interactions, he posed subtle questions about Michael's past, his aspirations, and his sudden interest in philanthropy. Michael, ever the smooth talker, answered confidently, but Charles noted the slight pauses, the careful selection of words that suggested he was treading carefully. One evening, after a particularly revealing conversation, Charles sat in his study, a glass of bourbon in hand. He pondered the man his daughter had married. Michael had the potential to be a good husband, but Charles couldn't shake the feeling that his motives were not as pure as they seemed. The puzzle pieces were beginning to fit together, but there was one more piece Charles needed to see the full picture clearly. His plan was not to immediately expose Michael, but to create a situation where his true character would reveal itself. Charles was determined to protect Emma, even if it meant playing a long game to uncover the truth. As he sipped his bourbon, he resolved to watch and wait, knowing that in time, Michael's true intentions would inevitably come to light. The family dinner was set in the grand dining room of the Dawson estate, a room steeped in elegance and history. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the long mahogany table adorned with fine china and sparkling silverware. Emma, radiant and happy, sat beside Michael, who exuded confidence and charm, engaging in light conversation with the family members. Charles, at the head of the table, had been unusually quiet throughout the meal. His thoughtful silence contrasted with the lively discussions around him. As dessert was being served, he gently tapped his wine glass with a fork, capturing everyone's attention. The room fell silent as he rose to speak, his expression serious yet composed. "Family," Charles began, his voice steady. "I have something important to discuss with you all tonight, particularly with Emma and Michael." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle in the air. Michael felt a twinge of unease, but maintained his composed facade. Charles continued, "As you all know, the matter of my will and the future of our family's legacy has always been of great importance to me. I have recently made some adjustments to ensure that our values and principles are upheld." He looked directly at Michael, his gaze unwavering. My will is divided into two distinct parts, Charles explained. The first part, a substantial sum, will be given to Emma immediately following her marriage. This is to ensure her comfort and independence. Emma looked at her father with a mixture of surprise and gratitude, squeezing Michael's hand under the table. Michael, however, felt a cold knot of tension forming in his stomach. Charles's eyes, still fixed on Michael, grew even more intense. The second part, which constitutes the majority of my estate, will only be transferred after a year of marriage. This will happen only if I am convinced that Michael truly loves and is committed to Emma. A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Michael's heart pounded in his chest, but he forced a calm smile, masking the turmoil inside him. He knew this was a test, one that would require every ounce of his cunning to pass. Charles continued, "This decision was not made lightly. I believe it's crucial to ensure that Emma's happiness and well-being are prioritized above all else." He then turned his attention to Emma, his expression softening. "My dear, I trust you will understand the necessity of this measure." Emma, though taken aback, nodded slowly. "I understand, Father. I know you only want what's best for me." Charles nodded, satisfied. "Good. Then let us enjoy the rest of our evening." The conversation gradually resumed, but an undercurrent of tension lingered. Michael's mind raced, contemplating the implications of Charles's revelation. His path to the inheritance had just become significantly more complicated. He realized that the coming year would be a true test of his resolve and cunning, and he would need to tread carefully to achieve his ultimate goal. Michael's world began to feel like a cage tightening around him. The revelation of Charles's will had thrown a wrench into his meticulously crafted plans. The easy path to the Dawson fortune now required a performance of unwavering dedication and love for an entire year. He knew he had no choice but to navigate this intricate game with precision. Every morning, Michael woke up with a renewed resolve to maintain his facade. He showered Emma with affection, small surprises, and thoughtful gestures. Breakfasts in bed, spontaneous trips to the countryside, and heartfelt compliments became his daily routine. To the outside world, Michael was the epitome of a loving and devoted husband. In private, however, his mind was a storm of anxiety and scheming. He spent sleepless nights strategizing, analyzing every interaction with Charles, trying to find any hint of how to secure the old man's approval. He rehearsed conversations, planned outings with Emma that would be seen as genuine acts of love, and meticulously ensured that his actions were above reproach. Emma, blissfully unaware of Michael's internal turmoil, flourished under his attention. She often spoke to her friends and family about how fortunate she felt to have found such a caring partner. Her happiness, while genuine, only added to the pressure Michael felt. He needed to keep up the charade not just for Charles, but for Emma as well, whose trust and affection were now his most potent weapons. During dinners with Charles, Michael would engage in deep conversations about business ethics, philanthropy, and the importance of family. He would share stories that painted him as a man of integrity and compassion, always careful to align his values with those of the Dawson patriarch. Charles listened intently, his face a mask of interest, but Michael could never quite read the old man's true thoughts. Michael's desperation led him to consider more drastic measures. He thought about hiring private investigators to dig up dirt on Charles's associates, hoping to leverage any secrets to his advantage. He even contemplated creating situations that would make him look like a hero in Emma's eyes, further cementing his position as the perfect husband. Despite his meticulous planning, the constant act began to take a toll on Michael. He found it increasingly difficult to separate his true self from the persona he had crafted. Moments of genuine affection towards Emma began to seep through, blurring the lines between his deceit and his emerging feelings. This internal conflict only fueled his desperation, as he feared that any slip could unravel everything he had worked for. The year ahead loomed like a marathon he was ill-prepared to run. Each day was a delicate dance, each word and gesture a step in a high-stakes performance. Michael knew that one misstep could cost him everything, and so he pressed on, his mind constantly churning with plans within plans, all aimed at winning the ultimate prize. Yet, amid the desperation and plotting, a small, nagging thought began to take root in Michael's mind. A thought he tried to ignore but couldn't entirely dismiss. What if, in the process of pretending to love Emma, he found himself falling for her truly? And what if that changed everything? Living with Emma day in and day out began to have an unexpected effect on Michael. Initially, his interactions with her were part of his calculated plan, every compliment and gesture meticulously thought out to maintain his facade. However, as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Michael found himself genuinely enjoying Emma's company in ways he hadn't anticipated. Emma's kindness was not just a superficial trait, but a deeply ingrained part of her character. She went out of her way to help others, often sacrificing her own comfort for the well-being of those around her. Michael watched as she volunteered at shelters, organized community events, and spent time with people less fortunate, always with a smile and a sincere heart. Her generosity was boundless, and it was clear that she found true joy in giving. Her intelligence also began to shine through in their conversations. Emma was well-read, articulate, and thoughtful. She had a keen understanding of the world and could discuss a wide range of topics with insight and depth. Michael found himself looking forward to their late-night talks, where they would sit by the fireplace, discussing everything from literature to philosophy to the future of their charitable endeavors. Her perspectives often challenged him, making him think more deeply about his own views and beliefs. Emma's unwavering positivity and resilience in the face of adversity were particularly striking. Michael had always considered himself strong and determined, but he realized that Emma possessed a quiet strength that was far more profound. She faced challenges with grace and optimism, never allowing setbacks to diminish her spirit. Her ability to find beauty and hope in the most difficult situations was something Michael had never encountered before. These qualities began to affect Michael in subtle but significant ways. He started to admire Emma not just as a means to an end, but as a person. Her laughter, once just a pleasant sound, now warmed his heart. Her touch, once calculated and strategic, now brought him comfort. The lines between his deception and his true feelings grew increasingly blurred, causing him to question his motives and the person he was becoming. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma turned to Michael with a serene smile. "You know, I've always believed that people come into our lives for a reason," she said softly. "I think we have so much to learn from each other." Michael looked into her eyes, feeling a pang of guilt mixed with an unfamiliar warmth. He nodded, unable to find the words to respond. In that moment, he realized that his time with Emma was changing him in ways he had never expected. He was beginning to see her not as a means to an end, but as someone who genuinely mattered to him. As the days went by, Michael's internal conflict grew. His original plan seemed increasingly hollow in the face of the real connection he was developing with Emma. He started to question what he truly wanted and whether he could continue deceiving the woman who had become such an integral part of his life. Emma's qualities, which he had once seen as tools to be used, were now transforming him, leading him down a path he had never imagined. One sunny afternoon, Emma approached Michael with a gentle but determined expression. "Michael, there's something I'd like to ask you," she began, her eyes reflecting both hope and a hint of nervousness. Michael, curious and slightly apprehensive, nodded for her to continue. "I lead a project at the local community center," Emma explained. "It's a program designed to help underprivileged children with their education and personal development. We provide tutoring, mentorship, and various activities to keep them engaged and motivated. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I would love for you to join me and see what we do firsthand." Michael hesitated. His initial instinct was to decline, worried that such involvement might expose his true intentions. But he quickly realized that refusing might arouse suspicion and undermine the image he had so carefully crafted. With a charming smile, he agreed, "Of course, Emma. I'd be honored to help." The following Saturday, Michael found himself at the bustling community center, surrounded by the cheerful chatter of children and the dedicated efforts of volunteers. Emma introduced him to the team and the children, her face lighting up with pride and enthusiasm as she explained the various activities and initiatives. At first, Michael participated out of obligation, going through the motions to maintain appearances. He helped set up classrooms, assisted with tutoring sessions, and joined in on games and activities. However, as the day progressed, he began to notice the genuine impact of Emma's work. The children's faces lit up with joy and gratitude, their eyes filled with hope and excitement for the future. One child in particular, a bright-eyed boy named David, captured Michael's attention. David struggled with his schoolwork, but showed immense determination and curiosity. Michael found himself drawn to the boy's resilience and eagerness to learn. He spent extra time helping David with his assignments, offering encouragement and celebrating his small victories. As the weeks went by, Michael's involvement in the project deepened. What had started as a mere act of maintaining his facade began to turn into something more meaningful. He saw firsthand the challenges these children faced and the profound difference the program made in their lives. Their stories of hardship and triumph resonated with him, stirring emotions he had long suppressed. Michael's perspective on life and his priorities began to shift. He found himself reflecting on his own ambitions and the emptiness of his relentless pursuit of wealth. The genuine connections he formed with the children and the sense of fulfillment he derived from helping them started to overshadow his original motives. Emma noticed the change in Michael. She saw how he interacted with the children, his patience, and the genuine care he showed. Her admiration for him grew, believing that she had found a partner who shared her values and passions. Michael's involvement in the project not only brought him closer to Emma, but also led him to question the path he had chosen. The walls he had built around his heart began to crumble, and he started to see a new possibility for his life, one where love, compassion, and genuine connection mattered more than any inheritance. Months of internal struggle weighed heavily on Michael. The facade he had carefully maintained began to feel suffocating, and the guilt gnawed at him relentlessly. Every genuine moment he shared with Emma, every act of kindness she showed, made the burden of his deception more unbearable. He knew he couldn't continue living this lie, especially as his feelings for her had grown into something real and profound. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over their garden, Michael decided it was time. He found Emma sitting on a bench, a book in her lap and a serene smile on her face. Taking a deep breath, he approached her, his heart pounding in his chest. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice unsteady. She looked up, sensing the seriousness in his tone, and closed her book, giving him her full attention. "What is it, Michael?" she asked gently, her eyes searching his. He took a seat beside her, struggling to find the right words. "I've been keeping something from you, something important. When we first met, and even when we got married, my intentions weren't pure." Emma's expression shifted to one of confusion and concern. "What do you mean?" Michael took her hands in his, feeling the warmth and trust she had always offered him. "I married you because of your father's fortune. I saw our marriage as a way to secure my financial future, nothing more." He paused, his throat tightening as he saw the hurt begin to form in her eyes. "But over these months, everything changed. Being with you, seeing the person you are has made me realize how wrong I was. I've come to love you deeply, truly. My feelings for you are real, Emma, and I can't keep this secret any longer." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she processed his words. The revelation cut deep, a betrayal she had never expected. She pulled her hands away, standing up as a mix of pain and anger washed over her. "So, all of it, the affection, the support, the time we spent together, was just part of your plan?" Michael stood too, desperation in his eyes. "It started that way, but it changed. You changed me. I've come to love you more than I ever thought possible, and I couldn't bear to keep lying to you." Emma turned away, tears streaming down her cheeks. She felt as if the foundation of her world had crumbled beneath her. "I need time to think," she said quietly, her voice trembling. Michael watched her walk away, his heart breaking with every step she took. He knew that telling her the truth was the right thing to do, but it didn't lessen the pain of seeing her hurt. He could only hope that in time, she would understand the sincerity of his feelings and find it in her heart to forgive him. Charles Dawson had been watching Michael closely ever since the young man had married his daughter. He had observed the changes in Michael, noting the growing sincerity in his actions and affections towards Emma. Despite this, Charles's protective instincts compelled him to ensure that Michael's transformation was genuine and not just another layer of deceit. One evening, Charles called Michael and Emma to his study. The room, filled with rich mahogany furniture and lined with bookshelves, had an air of gravity that immediately set both of them on edge. Charles, sitting behind his large oak desk, looked uncharacteristically somber. "Thank you for coming," Charles began, his voice steady but with an undertone of seriousness. "I have some news that I must share with you both. It's about our family's financial situation." Emma's heart skipped a beat, and she glanced at Michael, whose face remained unreadable. Charles took a deep breath, then continued, "Due to some poor investments and unforeseen market conditions, we have suffered significant losses. In fact, I'm afraid we've lost almost everything. The company is on the brink of bankruptcy, and there will be no inheritance left for Emma." The room fell silent. Emma felt a wave of shock and disbelief wash over her. Michael, though outwardly calm, felt a whirlwind of emotions churn inside him. He had come to love Emma genuinely, but this news tested the very foundation of his initial motivations and current convictions. Charles watched them closely, particularly Michael. He wanted to see how his son-in-law would react to this sudden and devastating news. Emma, her voice barely above a whisper, asked, "Is there anything we can do to help, Father?" Charles shook his head gravely. "I've already taken every measure I can think of. Now, we must prepare for a much simpler life." Michael took Emma's hand in his grip firm and reassuring. "Emma," he began, his voice filled with a conviction that surprised even him, "we'll get through this together. It doesn't matter to me if there's no inheritance. What matters is that we have each other. We can rebuild, and I'll be by your side every step of the way." Emma looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of hesitation or insincerity. She found none. Her father, however, was still studying Michael, looking for the smallest crack in his resolve. But Michael's eyes remained steady, filled with determination and love for Emma. Charles leaned back in his chair, the weight of his test hanging in the air. "I appreciate your support, Michael," he said finally. "We will need to make significant adjustments in our lives, but with your help, I believe we can find a way forward." As they left the study, Charles allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The final test had been set, and Michael had responded with the kind of commitment and love that Charles had hoped for. This ordeal, real or not, had revealed the true character of the man who had married his daughter. The news of Charles's financial downfall had left Emma and Michael reeling, but Michael's resolve had only strengthened. He knew he had to prove his love and commitment to Emma in the most tangible way possible. Watching Emma continue her work at the community center, despite their personal crisis, filled him with admiration and a deep sense of duty. One evening, as they sat together discussing the future, Emma expressed her fears about the sustainability of her beloved project. "Michael, without the funds from my father's estate, I'm not sure how we can keep the community center running. Those children depend on us," she said, her voice tinged with worry. Michael took her hand, his gaze steady and determined. "We'll find a way, Emma. I promise you." And he meant it with every fiber of his being. Over the next few weeks, Michael made a series of difficult decisions. He reviewed his own financial portfolio, identifying assets that could be liquidated. It wasn't easy. Many of these investments represented years of hard work and success. But none of it mattered more than Emma and the cause she was so passionate about. He sold off shares in some of his most profitable ventures, liquidated properties, and even parted with his prized collection of rare artifacts. Each transaction was a step closer to supporting Emma's dream and solidifying his commitment to her. The process was arduous and emotionally taxing, but Michael remained unwavering. When the funds were finally gathered, Michael arranged a meeting with Emma and the board of the community center. As they sat around the table, discussing the dire financial situation, Michael quietly placed a substantial check in front of them. "This," he said, his voice clear and resolute, "is my contribution to ensure that this project not only survives but thrives. Emma, your work here is invaluable, and I believe in it as much as you do." Emma looked at the check, her eyes widening in shock and gratitude. Tears filled her eyes as she turned to Michael. How did you manage this?" she asked, her voice breaking. Michael smiled gently. "I sold some of my assets. It's just money, Emma. What you're doing here is priceless. These children, this community, they need you, and I need you to be happy and fulfilled." The room was silent, the board members clearly moved by Michael's sacrifice. Emma threw her arms around him, her tears flowing freely. "Thank you, Michael," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in me and in this project." Michael held her close, feeling the weight of his decision lift from his shoulders. For the first time, he felt a profound sense of purpose that went beyond his own ambitions. Supporting Emma and her work had become his true calling, a testament to the love he had discovered within himself. Through this act of unconditional support, Michael proved that his love for Emma was real and selfless. He had transformed from a man driven by greed to one guided by genuine love and compassion, showing that true wealth was found not in money, but in the connections and positive impacts made along the way. Several months after Michael had made his significant sacrifices to support Emma's community project, Charles called the couple to his study once more. The atmosphere was different this time, warmer, more intimate. As they entered the room, Charles stood by the window, looking out over the expansive estate grounds. He turned to face them with a contemplative expression. "Thank you both for coming," Charles began, his voice steady but carrying a note of gravity. Emma and Michael exchanged curious glances before taking their seats. Michael's heart pounded, unsure of what to expect. Charles walked over to his desk and picked up a document folder. "There's something I need to confess," he said, looking directly at Michael. "You see, the financial crisis I spoke of months ago was not real. It was a test." Emma gasped, her eyes widening in shock. "What do you mean, Father?" Charles sighed, placing the folder back down. "I needed to be certain of Michael's intentions. When you first married, I had my doubts about his sincerity. So, I created a scenario to see how he would react if the inheritance he sought were to disappear." Michael felt a mix of emotions, relief, anger, but most of all, a profound sense of validation. He remained silent, allowing Charles to continue. "What I witnessed was nothing short of remarkable. Charles said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "Michael, you could have walked away, but instead, you chose to stay. You chose to support Emma, to invest your own resources into her work, and to show true love and commitment. Your actions have proven beyond any doubt that your love for my daughter is genuine and selfless." Emma turned to Michael, her eyes brimming with tears. "Michael, you really did that for me?" Michael nodded, his own eyes misty. "I did it because I love you, Emma, more than anything in this world." Charles approached them, his expression softening. "I am deeply impressed and moved by the transformation I've seen in you, Michael. You have shown integrity, love, and selflessness. And for that, I owe you an apology for doubting you." He handed the folder to Michael. "Inside this is the complete inheritance. The fortune is intact and now belongs to you both. You have my blessing, my trust, and my utmost respect." Michael opened the folder, glancing at the documents that confirmed the immense wealth now at their disposal. He looked up at Charles, overwhelmed. "Thank you, Charles. I don't know what to say." Charles smiled warmly. "Just promise me you'll continue to love and support each other, and use this fortune wisely, as I know you will." Emma hugged her father tightly, her tears flowing freely. "Thank you, Father, for everything." Michael joined the embrace, feeling a profound sense of completion. The journey had been arduous, filled with deception and revelation, but it had led him to a place of true love and genuine purpose. As they stood together, united as a family, Michael knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter, one built on trust, love, and the incredible bond they shared.